Have you been trying to figure out how to get your price up as an entertainment DJ? Well, this is how you do it. Check out this episode. Let's go. Back once again, loyalty in the building. Welcome to Just Another DJ Podcast, episode 6. We're here. How's everybody doing out there? It's been I wouldn't say eventful summer, even though there's a big storm brewing off the coast of Florida, but it's been a fun summer. I've been able to attack content all summer instead of focusing on gigs because it's the downtime of the year for me. But we're going to be ramping up here soon, but I got a lot of stuff to talk about on today's episode, so let's get into it with my first segment, Gotta Have Loyalty. So, if you've watched episode 2, then you know that I do a DJ Spotlight, and Nick Spinelli was the one that was on my DJ Spotlight, so he released an interview, I want to say about a week ago, and he had on The Knot, a whistleblower from The Knot. Now, if you're curious or you don't know what The Knot is, I would say it's like a vendor lead portal or site where brides or grooms or wedding couples or somebody comes to their site looking for vendors for their event. And if you're a vendor, say a florist, if you're a venue or a photographer or a DJ, then you can pay to advertise on there. Now, there's many different tiers, and from what I understand, the tiers depend on your location, because I have other friends that are in different geographical areas throughout the country, and they either pay as much as I do or they don't pay as much as I do for similar or higher spots. Now, for me, I'll be transparent. I'm in Central Florida. I want to say that this area usually services somewhere around 23 or 24,000 weddings every single year. I think that number's actually gone down, but the last time I pulled market analysis was 2023 and 2024, and those numbers were right around 22 to 24,000 weddings just in my area. So for my mid-tier spot, I think that I pay just shy of $5,000 a year. It comes out to be somewhere in the neighborhood about $390 every single month I pay to market just to get that mid spot on The Knot. So has it been helping me? Well, we'll get into kind of what the video talks about. So Nick has on a whistleblower. This is somebody who's worked at the company for years. And something that's been coming up a lot lately is fake leads. It are things that are being pushed through the site to vendors like myself, and we haven't been seeing our return on investment as much. Now, I'm going to be very, I don't want to say vague, but loose with that, because yes, I could still possibly float my business by having my advertisement budget or my marketing budget on that site. But I've just noticed in the first 12 months, you sign a contract. Now, I'm not an expert on how they do everything, but in the first 12 months, you sign a contract with them. And then after that 12 months is over, you basically go to month-to-month basis. So in my first 12 months, I think I booked probably 90% of the business that I had for my first year DJing as this company, once I retired from the Air Force, was through The Knot. And I want to say I made off of The Knot, spending, I think my overall payment to them after a year was about $4,700. I want to say I made close to about $20,000. So minus the $4,700, and I'm not going to get into all the other expenses that have to come out of that $20,000 or $21,000. But there you go. There's somewhat of a return on investment. I know there's a lot of nuance to this, and there's a lot of other things baked in there, but that's just one of the main marketing tools that I used in my first year and that I'm still currently using now. So, and I think that I just want to be transparent with you. So, some things that I started to notice once that 12 months elapsed. Leads went way down. Now, I didn't know if that was because our economy has started to like somewhat, inflation is going up. It started to fade. We started a war with another country. Like all these things happened simultaneously to my contract ending. But the leads started to go cold. Now, in that time, I've noticed I start getting a lot of canned responses or canned questions that don't really seem like they're coming from the client. They seem like A, either somebody's manufacturing these, or B, I notice a lot of clients that are being sent to me are probably doing one of those. They select on 4 or 5 vendors at one time, and then they shoot a question to all of them and see who responds first, type of deals. Now, that's what it seems like to me, okay? And I didn't see this in the first 12 months. I didn't see this until after my contract was up and I started paying just month to month, which none of my fees have changed. They're all still the same. I'm still roughly paying, if I use them for another 12 months, the same that I paid in my first 12-month contract. Just the stipulation before was, hey, you have to stay with us for 12 months or you could get a fee if you try to terminate the contract early. Now, they didn't take all of my money out right off rip. They charged me on a month-to-month basis, but I was locked into that 12-month contract. Kind of just like you are if you're with a cell phone carrier. You go in, you get a phone, you probably pay an activation fee, but you owe on that phone through the term of your contract, and you pay it on a month-to-month basis until it's paid off. And then once it's paid off or it's within a certain window and you don't have any type of extra, award incentives on your plan, then they say, hey, you're available or you're eligible for an upgrade. So anyways, this is 12 months. I was locked in the contract. It seemed great at first. I was paying the mid-tier, and they kind of allude to some of this in that video. I would highly recommend you watch this video, especially if you are using their business and you've started to see this, because I have heard some grumblings recently. I know Nick has put something on his socials a time or two, and I'm like, man, that sounds really familiar to a situation that I'm having with them. And the episode really busted it open for me, okay? And keep your minds out of the gutter, okay? But it really busted it open for me because I was like, wow, a lot of what they talked about in that episode, like FOMO, you haven't seen a lead in a while, you're like, man, I think I'm going to go ahead and terminate my contract. And then all of a sudden, after 4 or 5 weeks, you get one lead, you respond right away, and then you get them to a Zoom call and you're like, oh, okay, I just booked a $1,800 or a $2,000 gig. I should stay with them. And that FOMO, fear of missing out, for those of you that don't know the acronym, it's real. I can say myself, I've worried about where my leads are going to come from. I've put a lot of my advertisement into this basket because, I'm not a multi-million-dollar operation. I'm myself. Now, to be fair, I'm retired collecting a pension from the United States Air Force because I served almost 24 years active duty in the Air Force. So I don't want this to come off like, I'm groveling or anything like that. But I'd have to assume that this is a real scenario for a lot of guys that don't have a pension that are using this as their prime business. So for me, this is my only job now. And I would like to grow this business even more, but some things that we'll talk about later on in the episode, I'm trying to still find out where these leads are coming from, right? Okay. And I guess I have a pretty good idea now, but I'm still learning the process. I'm so green. I'm so new. I'm still wet behind the ears. I'm learning. I'm soaking in content from everywhere, like this guy, Nick Spinelli. And so when he had this episode on some things that they had talked about outside of the FOMO piece that I was telling you about, were just like how leads might go to certain vendors, and how somebody, and this is, I'm paraphrasing here, how sometimes those leads might get sent to you even though they weren't meant for you. And let me tell you about a couple of experiences that I had. A couple of experiences that I had where I got a lead, and I mean, this has probably happened 12 or 15 times now. I get a lead, it looks like a canned response. And if you know a canned response, like somebody sends you something, says, hey, we're trying to find out if you're available on this day and what your band offers. And you're just thinking to yourself, okay, is like, where in any of my pictures, in my descriptions on my site, anything, do you ever get the term band? Now, I understand that people going to look for entertainment for their wedding have no idea about entertainment. None. Zero. Unless they went to a wedding and they're like, okay, that's a DJ or that's a band. But I've never had somebody at a nightclub reach out to me and go, hey, we're interested in your band. Okay. So, and usually I attribute somebody saying band to an older person. But more times than not, it's a younger person that's hitting me up through the knot, according to their profile. Now, on a lot of these canned responses, there would be like 3 words in their profile, which I always thought was weird. But where I started putting them together is, like I said, when you get 12, 15 of these, and they're all the same. Now, the profiles are a little bit different. The emails are different, but they're all the same. And then after the 12 months is when I started taking on a lot of people fishing for information, trying to scam me through the site. And they would leave their emails the same. And they would do stuff like say, hey, my budget's like 5 to 10,000. And I'm thinking to myself, that's fantastic that you're hitting me up. But like, how did you come to me? You know what I mean? I'm always, if you've listened to my latest podcast, then you know my brain just works weird. I don't get a lead and go, woohoo, I got a lead. Well, okay, I do that. But I try to find out the psyche. I try to find out the psychology behind what is drawn to me. That's the reason why once I end up talking to a client somewhere in my markup or my interaction with them is, what drew you to me? You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, like, those things are important. I now post on YouTube, and following the analytics and following where your videos drop off and all that stuff is super important because it tells you exactly what you should and shouldn't be recording for your future episodes, which I don't ever learn, by the way, because I still do the same crap. But anyways, so those are just some of the things that I seen that they alluded to in the episode. Some other things that they alluded to in the episode, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing. I'll definitely have the link in my comments, and then you seen the picture on the screen, is that when you stop getting traction and you write a response to their technical support or somebody saying, hey, what's going on? I pay for the service, yada, yada, yada. All of a sudden you'll get 1 or 2 leads. And it's just like, I have physically seen that. Now, I've only wrote to them one time, and that's because I was getting a lot of phishing ones. I had upped my price, and then as soon as I upped my price, like, I got a couple leads, and it seemed like they were all from the same people, and they were basically trying to get me. They did something like, hey, we don't really come on here often. Can you just text me or call me at this number? Well, on all these lead attempts, it was the same number and same email. And then you always know that they're full of junk because they're like, yeah, we're having a wedding on a Tuesday. Not that people don't have weddings on Tuesdays. I get that. But we're having a wedding on a Tuesday. We're willing to pay $5,000. And you know what I mean? I'm not in the $5,000 wedding business yet. Hopefully one day. But I'd have to imagine if you're paying $5,000 for entertainment, you're probably not going to do it on a Tuesday. So they would send me benign stuff that's like, we're having it on a Tuesday, or we're having it on a Wednesday at 3:00 in the afternoon. It's just like, what? None of this makes sense. So I'd respond. And then before you know it, I just ended up I would text them because they say, we don't come on here often. We'd rather communicate through text, which I'm fine with. I would text them, but I started keeping that number on my phone and putting scam. I wouldn't spam it or send it. You know how you could block numbers, but I would go, and every single time, and I probably got half a dozen of these leads. And like I said, I haven't been with the knot. I don't remember when I signed my initial contract, maybe November or December of 24. So like, I'm not even up on 2 years. I did complete my first contract, but I'm coming up on 2 years with them, I think. And since my contract has, I don't want to say expired, but rolled over to the month to month, I've noticed this. My leads have dropped off significantly. And anytime that you talk to a tech support person, they're like, well, you haven't really changed your profile, blah, 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 blah. You haven't responded. And I'm like, no, that's BS. You won't find a lead for the most part. You won't find a lead that I haven't responded to within 15 minutes. And I just say that because every once in a while, they'll catch you by surprise. But for the if you were to pull analytics on my response time, it's usually within minutes. And this takes me to the next part that they somewhat talked about, and that I kind of said, them pushing me leads that were already out there. Now, I don't know this for a fact. I assume that if you're paying for a higher tier, and somebody's interested in their service, my service, who's mid-tier, and say a lower tier, they're probably affording those leads to that higher tier first, and then you're getting them. The reason I say that is because I have booked a few of those canned responses that seem like they went everywhere, and I have responded in seconds or in less than a minute. And that's usually my plan. Respond right away. And after talking to them, like I said, I always ask them what drew them to me. And sometimes I peel back the onion on response times, and they'll say something like, no, I sent that lead like hours ago. And I'm like, really? So, and you only get that because the ones that never come back in return or just leave you on red, which I always find crazy. So if you send me a response and I send one right back, and then you're like, oh, I'm already talking to somebody, and it's within seconds, the thing that tips you off a lot of time is there's a check mark that shows that that person that sent you that message has read your message, okay? And they can't really read the full, you know how if you get a text a lot of times, at least on iPhones, you can probably read most of the text without ever even open it up. It'll sit on red if that's who you are. I have OCD, so I can't leave them on red. But you can't really do that on the Knot. You have to open it up in order to read it. So what happens a lot of times on these canned responses, and they're like clockwork. I almost always know if it's going to be a valid lead or not. You'll get it. You'll respond within seconds, less than a minute, and then they won't read it for like 3 or 4 days. Now, usually if I see that they haven't read it in 1 day, I'll come back and I'll be like, hey, something to the effect of, this might have got lost in translation or lost in your inbox somewhere, because maybe they're reaching out to many vendors. I just wanted to, break the ice again, and then nothing. Or they might read it right after that. So it's just weird, those things. Now, all these are, I don't even want to call them opinions, just things that I've seen that seem a little bit off. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea, but they seem a little bit off. And the only thing that I can compare this to is if somebody ever hits me up on my website, which you've heard from previous episodes, I don't get a lot of traction on my website, but when I do, I know that they're interested in my services. But as soon as I hit them up, they respond back. There's no lapse. They respond back. Yet on the Knot, there's too many times. And it almost feels like they're generating, this is what it seems like. They're generating leads, kicking them to me that belong to somebody else, where they may have already either closed the lead, or maybe that lead fell off because nobody booked them through the site, whatever. And then it's pushed to me. And then they just ignore me because I do have a response after a few days. If they have not responded, I have this thing, and I got it from my mentor, but it says something like type a number if this pertains. 1, I'm still looking, haven't found somebody. 2, we're just not interested in entertainment. 3, we already booked somebody. And then 4, I'm running from a cougar in the woods and I couldn't respond. And a lot of times people will respond to that. Even the ones that book, they usually don't leave that on red, which is crazy. People find a little bit of humor. They'll go 3 and 4, like they've already booked with somebody, and 4, they're running from a cougar in the woods or whatever. So I say all that because it's just odd, right? So when I watched this episode with the whistleblower that Nick Spinelli put out on his YouTube channel last week, I was like, man, I can relate to a lot of what they're talking about in there. And it made me start wondering. I started going to the chat bot that I'm using, and I've started to try to build a new marketing plan, because all my money is tied up in right now is about $400 a month in that lead program for the knot. I'm not on Wedding Wire and all that stuff, because all my research yielded that whatever leads that you get from the knot, you're probably going to get from Wedding Wire as well. I've also heard, and they alluded to it in the episode, that they've kind of like left Wedding Wire. It's a part of their site, but they don't even like pay it any mind. And I kid you not, when I was doing all my research and using AI, it basically told me that. So that's the reason why I only advertised and went on the knot and not the other program. So it's crazy that she talks about that in that episode. And it's like, yo, AI knew this. Google knew this. That's bizarre. But anyways, do me a favor. I would definitely check out that episode. A lot of good information. I still have my subscription or whatever you have, my advertising with the knot. I am planning on getting off the knot. One of my buddies I spoke to, it's funny because as soon as this crossed his feed, he obviously watched it. He sent me a text right away, and then he sent me his cancellation right away. And you know who you are if you're watching this. And I was just like, I'm at the point now where if I spend $4,700 a year, I'm booking about $9,000 to $11,000 in gigs. I'm at that point, but once you subtract that $47,000, you know what I mean? And they talk about this in the episode too. Like Nick even says, if you're spending half the money that you're making, on those leads, are you even really doing that well? And no, once you factor in all the other stuff that goes in this business, and I know a lot of guys don't think about that, like your suits, your tailoring, your dry cleaning, buying new equipment, gas, expenditures, all like that. Like, yeah, it starts to eat into your profits. So for me, I started to work a new plan. I'm probably going to shift towards Google right now. I left this off the table. Right now, a lot of my budget is in that, I don't make a grandioso amount of money. I'm not a 200 or 300 grand company. Do I aspire to be that one day? Maybe, you know what I mean? And I don't say that like, I don't want that to happen. It's just like, what am I willing to work? I'm already retired from one career. I love doing this. I still want to do 30 to 40 events per year. I just don't want to do 30 to 40 events per year at $2,000. I want to try to grow that, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But yeah, I mean, I'm still on there, but I'm looking to probably change really soon. I'm just putting together a plan in between all this time that I'm editing videos and working on social media. And I'll probably be leaving the knot. So, but what that is right now, most of my budget, my marketing budget is tied up in the knot. The rest is either in Meta, pushing my videos, pushing my content, YouTube, occasionally Instagram. So, but I would say that's probably $150 per month, maybe even that. It's on a case-by-case basis, and then another $400 every single month. And I'm rounding up. It's like $388 in the knot. But I'm looking to shift. That. I got no money pushing in Google right now. I think that that's what I want to do because that focuses more on my surrounding area and market. But there's some titans, some companies in my area that pay for the top spots. So do I want to put all my eggs in that basket when your average Google goer is going to be like, okay, they're just going to select on the company that's in your area. So these are all things that I'm trying to work out here in the future. But this takes me to the next video that I seen. And it's funny because these two either used to work together or still work together, or maybe Nick used to work for this person. So it looks like Nick is on his own now. I don't know. I couldn't find anything. I wasn't really digging too deep anyways. But Jason Jani. So if you've never heard that name and you're living under a rock, it's either A, you're extremely new in the entertainment space, or you don't get on YouTube or social media, because this guy is he's been building a brand, and he released a video this past week. Now, Jason Jani owns SCE Event Group, I think it's what it's called. The E probably is the event part. But he basically owns wedding entertainment, high premium wedding entertainment, has a bunch of DJs that work either with him or for him under his company name. And of course, he's a DJ himself. And dude's got a lot of content. He's not my DJ spotlight, but like maybe eventually he will. But he posted a video over the last week and a half. And the title was How I Went from $1,250 to $5,000. Basically a gig. 4 things. I just wrote that down in my overview. But so immediately I'm a guy who's in that $1,200 range. Now, I've since upped, and I'm going to share some of my key secrets to get my price up. I'm still gaining. You could probably take a look at my channel, take a look at my equipment, take a look at my process and be like, yo, that's where you're failing on right there. You know what I'm saying? I'm learning. Experience is everything. Like, you can't pay for experience. That's why it's super important to use these guys' experience. But anyways, I digress. He makes this video, and I'm going to be honest with you, okay? And I'm not doing this to get clicks. This guy is hugely successful, and I do listen to a lot of what he says and try to roll it into what I'm doing. Now, take that with a grain. He's in a completely different market than I am. But in this video, I somewhat felt gaslit, okay? I did. And we'll get to, he says 4 things, and I think in the video, he calls them 4 pillars. Now, if I missed stuff, and Jason, for some reason you ever watch this podcast, I highly doubt it, then I apologize. And also, a disclaimer, I've not watched every single video that he puts out. Here and there, it'll cross my feed. I'll take a look at it. And usually, if it applies to what I'm doing, I'm all ears. I'm a sponge, okay? The good thing I have going for me is I have a mentor in this space. And this guy, I shared him. He's in my DJ Spotlight from episode 1 of this podcast. But Nate, like, he usually puts me up on a lot of game. He's usually steering me in the right direction. His rates are basically almost up to the $5,000 range. He's doing hella business. And so I'm very fortunate that I have a mentor in this space to help guide me. So a lot of times these videos are either too late or they're either on the fringes. They're like the book cover that says, hey, you need to do this. And then without peeling back the pages, I can go to Nate. He's like, all right, this is what you need to do. And he defines everything that's on the cover of those books. But anyways, so $1,250 to $5,000. I'm all ears, baby. I want to know, how do I go from $1,250? Now, once again, my rate isn't $1,250, but if you go on my site, there is a small package that is around that. It's like $1,249. But let's be real, because they do the same thing. That's a base price, and then there's a la carte features to add to that. So on average, I have low ends that could be $1,500, $1,600, all the way up to $2,300 after a la carte. I'm usually closing out at somewhere in the neighborhood between $1,850 to $2,000 a gig, when all things come together throughout the course of the year. So I don't know why I'm tooting my own horn like that. It makes no sense. I sound like crazy right now. But anyways, I'm curious. I would love to get to that number, okay? Which is crazy because it's not all about that. Because I would tell you this. I could have went and did a contracting job and been doing real good after the Air Force, but it wasn't about the money for me. It was about I wanted to love what I was doing, and I absolutely love what I'm doing now, except for the pack up part. I don't love that. I've said that before. I just want to make that clear. I do not love packing up after a gig. It's not my favorite. And usually if I hire an assistant, it's because of that, the pack up. Anyways, one of the first pillars that he had in there was stop being a wedding DJ. Now, he somewhat peels this back in the episode, but I just want to focus on going from $1,250 to $5,000. I understand what he's trying to say in this video, and this is a part of being gaslit, okay? At the end of the day, you are a wedding DJ, and he even says it in there. But I think what he wants to come across, when you go to his site, you more so, that's entertainment, okay? And something he alludes to a lot in this video is it's not the equipment, it's not the songs or what have you. But I just want to expound on this. Stop being a wedding DJ. Like, yeah. If you go watch The Wedding Singer, which is an old dated reference, shouts out to all my 40-year-olds that are viewing this. But yeah, you don't want to be known as that. You want to be known as an entertainer. And I'll tell you this, out of all the events that I do, I'm usually with multiple different vendors. Do you know how many vendors put on a suit? None. Just me. You know how many of the lower guys in my field, in my area, put on a suit? None. You know what I'm saying? So, and the reason that I do that is, and I think it even says it on my site, you're not just getting a DJ. You want to try to market yourself as wedding entertainment. But I'm going to be real with you. As premium entertainment, that ain't taking you from $1,250 to $5,000, okay? It's not. Tomorrow, if I wake up and I go turn all of my socials to premium entertainment and I get the pictures out there and all that stuff, where the hell are $5,000 clients calling me from? They're not. They're not calling you, okay? There's reasons for that I'll get to that kind of are left off here. And this is the part of the gaslighting that I just don't like, okay? And that's not to say this is not a great person. This is a great person. I just think there was a translation lost. I do think, and I know this from being in the military for 23 and a half years, almost 24, I'm going to consistently say 24, that sometimes I couldn't relate to the newer troops. Why? Because I was giving them experiences that they hadn't gone through yet, okay? I had to bring myself to their level, okay? And the only reason why I'm saying that he's bringing himself to our level is because his title said how I went from $1,250 to $5,000, okay? He's at our level. So you have to be real with us. I agree with him. Stop being a wedding DJ. Be wedding entertainment. If that's what you're offering, if you're just a wedding DJ, I'm just going to show up and do this, then that's fine, man. That's fine. But he doesn't make these videos for the guys that are okay and he uses stuck in the mud, that want to be in the mud. He's making these videos for guys like myself, guys that are interested in peaking out, going to the max, okay? So that's one pillar. I paraphrased a lot. Maybe I missed. I got a real short attention span and my brain goes off, squirrel. So maybe there's some things that I missed in there, but I didn't take a lot away from that. I do consider myself as wedding entertainment. You know what I'm saying? I want to provide a service. Okay. His next pillar was experience just as good as the performance. Now, I can relate to this a lot, but I do not know in the context that he put how you go from $1,250 to $5,000. And maybe it's because he kind of left a lot off there, but he says in there, the tech stuff is not what he's talking about upping the price. And I agree to him to an extent. And he alludes to in that pillar, the meeting with the couples, building trust, fast email response, all these things for a premium service. Now, I'm going to expound on that. And then I'm going to tell you where I feel gaslit lit at. Okay? I do think the first time, first impressions are lasting impressions. I've said that 1,000 times because in the military, you're constantly moving from one station to another. You constantly have to get used to working with new people all the time. And you have to work at a high level. You can't just go on to your next base and then be mediocre. You need to work at a high level. You're going to get lapped by the guys working at a high level, and you're going to put your career in a corner. So I definitely can relate to when he says meeting with couples. Now, my number one goal, if I get you on a Zoom call, and I've said this 1,000 times, my hardest is that conversion from the first email to the Zoom call. If I get you on a Zoom call, I'm up there around 90-95% where I'm going to close that sale. And that's because I focus on building a relationship with my couple, okay? Huge thing, building a relationship with my couple. And that doesn't mean, hey man, who's your kids? That means sell yourself to them. And he talks about this, making sure that they know that they could trust you, guaranteeing your services. But he left some stuff off there, okay? Now, there's good salesmen out there that could build coverage and then they sell you a piece of junk and then you walk away. And guess what? It doesn't matter. The sale is the sale. The one thing that's true about our business are there's reviews and there's stuff like that on the back end. But once they sign that contract, pay that initial fee, I'd have to assume that that's where some people's relationships fall off. Okay? And one thing that I don't think that he talks about in there is if you got piece of shit gear with wires going everywhere and you don't offer the services that they're interested in, you are not getting your $5,000 asking price. It's not that, because your competitors can have good customer service and all the stuff that they didn't know that they wanted, okay? If they shop you, they didn't know that they wanted that. Now, I've seen the reverse since I've been a DJ, and I found this out afterwards, which I told my mentor about a story that I recently had, where I sell them on the lower end. I have no idea if I'm undercutting anybody, anything like that, because nobody makes their prices in this business transparent. Nobody. They're either behind a paywall or they're in secret. The only way that you know is calling up DJ company X and go, yo, how much do you charge? And they're never going to tell you. They're going to, fumble around it. Not me. My prices are transparent on my website, okay? So where I'm going with this are, I've been able to get couples on the phone or on a Zoom meeting and build that experience with them before the performance, and then the performance has to come. And I've been able to upsell some things and get my price up. But even if I provide the greatest customer service starting tomorrow, those $5,000 leads, they're not showing up right away. They're not. Where do you get them from? How do they know to call you? How? Where are they coming from? How are they getting funneled to you? How? So, although it's important to stop being a wedding DJ and to provide an experience, these are building blocks after, to get up there, but these aren't the see and all be all. You can be doing all these and not getting $5,000 gigs, okay? There's other stuff that's left off the table. I disagree about the tech stuff. You need to have the tech stuff. Now, maybe what he's alluding to is his company offers DJ furniture, which looks great, by the way, and I still have a facade. Does that mean that I shouldn't get? No, I don't think that so maybe that's what he's alluding to when it comes to tech stuff. They offer, CO2 and, bubbles or whatever they offer. And I'm just saying, and at this point, I'm not really talking about Jason Jani and SE, because a lot of these big mega wedding entertainment companies offer an array of things. You know what I mean? Video walls, cold sparks, which I got cold sparks. I'm right there with you. But, all these different CO2. What are some other things I see out there? I don't even know. Walking on clouds, all these different things. The tech stuff does matter too. But can you have all the tech stuff and be a douchebag? Probably not. You ain't going to be selling your tech stuff if you're a douchebag. So although I completely understand what he's saying, that experience is super important from the first call all the way through the end. Make yourself approachable. We all have those friends that you want to be around all the time that you notice, man, everybody likes this guy. Why do they like that guy? How do you become that guy? And sometimes that guy's a piece of shit, but out in public, that guy's awesome because he's very relatable, down to earth. How do you become that guy? How do you be approachable? I think that that's what he's alluding to, but in my experience, once again, you can already be all those things. You're not getting $5,000 gigs, okay? Because nobody even knows who the hell you are. So, and then the next one, pillar three, I built a real business and priced it like one. So I thought I built a real business when I first started this company, been DJing for X number of years. I'd like to think I got great customer service, and that's all my time and interaction dealing with either people that worked for me in the past. That's my experience for working with people that were terrible at working with people. It taught me all the things that I didn't want to interact with. That taught me being in the bar and nightclub business for X number of years, the customer interaction that I had with patrons, fans, work staff, all those things. So when it came time for me to build a real business, I made a logo, and he talks about this, not just being a DJ with a nice logo, but I felt like I had all this stuff. $5,000 gigs were not knocking on my door even now, since I've been. And maybe once again, he talks about this in this process, having the mindset. Listen, if I wake up tomorrow, and I feel like I wake up every day like $1 million, and I have the mindset of a $7,000 DJ, there's no gigs knocking on your door. Now, if he wants to hire me, I bet you I'll start commanding $5,000 and $7,000 gigs. But that's going to be a twofold. That's off their reputation and experience. And then I still got to carry the bag when I meet the client. And that's where I think he's talking about mindset. And some of these guys, and I'm not trying to knock Jason Jani, he built this from the ground up, okay? Some of these guys have been now elevated so much because of himself. I'm not discounting his hard work and determination to get here. And this isn't really about him. But like I alluded to, I retired as a master sergeant, and they just can't relate to the younger guys, okay? Just can't relate. So they throw out these things like mindset. Listen, I have the mindset like I'm a $7,000 DJ ever since I woke up and got in front of this. That's not going to bring you $5,000 to $7,000 gigs. It's not, okay? It helps when you start getting them. Fact. The experience part starts helping you when you get those gigs. The stop being a wedding DJ starts helping you when you get those gigs. But those are not the building blocks to getting those gigs, okay? There's nuance to this, all right? So, once again, mindset. He talks about in there. Brand. Okay, yes, building your brand I think is super important. And something that he's been able to do is definitely build a brand. I think he's a staple in the industry. Everybody should be looking to, especially if you want to not be stuck in the mud and you want to grow, you should definitely be looking to build your brand. But how do you build your brand? How? Okay? Yeah, if you do these things, that's going to help, but that ain't going to do it. If you do all these things right now and there's 0 leads coming in, the hell are you doing? Okay? $1,250 leads are coming in. But I'm going to tell you how to get there, okay? So I just felt gaslit by even that. Now, he talks a lot about some things in there, but there's some things he left off the table that I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then the last thing that he said is stop chasing the wrong clients. Right now, I'm advertising on The Knot. And then I have some stuff on Meta. And like I've already talked about this in the early part of this. I've noticed all the clients, for the most part, that I get through The Knot are budget-friendly clients. If you go to, Thumbtack, if you go to a lot of these wedding sites, they're all budget clients that go there, okay? I've noticed that, all right? In order to boost your brand and stuff like that, you got to do it another way. So how do you do it? Because he doesn't tell you how to do it. It just says, stop being a wedding DJ. Okay, I'm going to stop doing that. Experience, making it pleasurable. Okay, well, in order to make that pleasurable experience for a $5,000 booking, I got to get one first. So how the hell do I do that? Build a real business. Okay, well, I feel like I got a real business, but it's not attracting 5,000. How do I do that? You got to change your mindset. Well, I thought I had a good mindset, but still $5,000 bookings aren't coming into it. I feel like Agent B is a pretty good brand. I'm building it, but I'm still not attracting. You know what I'm saying? There's some things left off there. Stop chasing the wrong clients. How? I'm advertising here. How? Nobody's telling me anything. Your price is your filter, he says in there, and your price attracts. I 100% agree. And this is what I'll tell you. I used to charge $850 when I first, because I didn't know what these guys were getting paid. In fact, these guys weren't putting on their sites that I'm getting paid $5,000 and $7,000. They weren't. This is a recent trend within the last 2 years. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to go out on a limb and say my buddy Nate, who is on my DJ Spotlight, he's the first one doing this. In fact, when all of my friends that are running entertainment companies are saying, Tony, don't put your pricing on your website. And I ask why, nobody has a really good answer for me. Except for him. He's like, make sure it's on there. Almost all my clients, and he's up there booking $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 gigs now. They say, we love your transparency because they don't feel like they're getting took. Which takes me down another rabbit hole that I'm going to talk about another day, and that's undercutting. How the hell can you undercut another DJ when you have no idea how much they're getting paid? You have no idea. Now, does that mean that undercutting doesn't exist in other form ways? Absolutely it does. But I'll just say, in my market, I have no idea how much DJ X and DJ X is getting paid. None. Nobody's transparent with their pricing. Nobody. No club. It's a form of negotiation in this business. So, anyways, I'm going to go down that a later episode. But anyways, stop chasing the wrong clients. Your price is a filter and your price attracts. I agree. I don't want to do $850 gigs anymore. I don't. I notice that they don't value you as an entertainer, okay? I notice it doesn't matter how nice I am in there. And I talked about this in episode 5, and he says it somewhat, and don't discount yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because you rarely, if ever, see a return on investment on discounting yourself. You just don't. I talked about this in episode 5. I highly recommend that you go back and listen to it about the experiences that I've had earlier in my career discounting. Now, that's not to say if a very good friend of mine or a family member comes to me and says, hey, will you do my wedding? I'm not going to give them the family discount. I am going to do that, okay? So that's not what Jason's talking about in his episode, and that's not what I'm alluding to, or you should be thinking when I say that. But your price attracts. You start attracting $850. If you're doing it for anything outside of just the experience, you're failing yourself, okay? Says that the conversion at $5,000 is never about price. I 100%, I've not experienced this. I have to imagine every single gig is about price, okay? You book within your means. Unless you're a multi-millionaire, that doesn't even make sense to me. but I've not been to his level and I don't understand it. And this is the other part of gaslighting that I feel like is happening here, because he's speaking above my head while in the while in the title saying that he's speaking to me. And then the one thing that he does talk about is talks about his bookings dropping off when he upped his price. Now, the first time I upped my price, straight up, bookings dropped. They occasionally picked up, but there was a lot of things that went into that. Anyways, he talks about his bookings dropping when he upped his price, which is going to happen, right? But eventually they came. How did they come? I mean, he basically alludes to because he did the other three things and then stopped chasing the wrong, that they came. No, they didn't, bro. There's some things that we're leaving off the table. Now, I don't know why these big content creators that are doing really successful leave these things off the table. And the only thing that I can, that comes to my mind is because they don't want you to emulate their process, because you could potentially replace them. And I don't know if that's the case. I'm only assuming, right? So there are things, I think that these are things that were building blocks to making him successful. And once again, I'm not beating down Jason Jani. The dude is hugely successful. You can look at the pictures and videos and know he offers a supreme service. And I do think he's got a lot of DJs that work for him. I've seen DJ companies where they just hire DJs without vetting their DJs, and then they start getting bad reviews, and it's a snowball. They turn into a budget company, and he's been able to not let that happen. And that's because his eye for talent has been supremely great. I mean, he had Nick Spinelli. I don't know if he still works under his company. I didn't see him in his website, Drop Down for Team. But he has an eye for talent. The dude is extremely talented from everything that I could see. I'm just saying, with this post, I just felt gaslit. I felt like I was being talked over my head. And it was just something I was interested in talking about on this podcast. So I'm going to tell you some things that I've noticed in my small little time of being in this profession, okay? And not the DJ profession, this entertainment, wedding entertainment, corporate, private, what have you. And I call this things he didn't mention but are super important. So, where are your leads coming from? Why does nobody ever talk about that? Where do they come from? Do they come from the knot? He's on the knot. I went and checked his company. Do they come from Thumbtack? I don't even know if that's a site. Zola, I think, is another one. Do they come from there? Do they come from Google? Do they come from all perpetuation, from returning clients, and he does allude to that in the video, but he doesn't emphasize it. That's important. That's what you should be telling the 1250 DJ, okay? So, where are the leads coming from? Some other things that didn't get mentioned. Where are you marketing at? Where? Are you paying to be the top spot on the knot? You're probably getting a lot of $5,000 gigs if you have all of the information on the knot, and then you apply all the stuff that you said in the 4 pillars if you're getting $5,000 coming in from the knot. Is that you? In the video that Nick Spinelli talked about and the whistleblower, the people who would often get serviced are the people paying for the top spots. Are you that guy? Is your company buying a top spot? Got left out of the video. Do you have wedding planners that give you vendor referrals, and do you pay for those referrals? Meaning, are you giving them a percentage off your base? Because I'd have to imagine that now I'm not saying that all the other stuff like stop being a wedding DJ experience, I'm not saying that all those don't apply to everything that I'm talking about, because they do. Once again, if you get a $5,000 gig and you're a douchebag, then chances are you're going to ruin that business. So you do have to have all the other things. I'm not discrediting or discounting those things. Those things are not bringing you $5,000 gigs, okay? But are those wedding plan relationships, Are you getting referrals? Are you giving kickbacks off those referrals? I know a lot of guys in this business that give that. They give 10% or 5%, depending on the gig, back to planners. There are some planners that I work with that now I've only been doing it for a year and some change. So I only have a few planners that have kicked me one gig, and they're basically testing the waters. They're trying to see how I work. But do you have those? Vendor referrals. Do you have those? You didn't allude to that. These are all the necessary markups to get to $5,000. Because the venue referrals, venue relationships. I do notice in a lot of these videos that a lot of DJs release, they're in a lot of the same venues. Why is that? I've only been doing this for a year and some change. I've done approximately 30 weddings, and I've only been in the same venue one time. Okay? That's because my clients have seen me from other places, The Knot, my socials, my website, and taken me to others. That's not to say I haven't been put on preferred vendor lists for venues. It's just, are those things that you have? Hiring the right talent. That's super important. You did allude to this in the video, or he did allude to this in the video, having an eye for talent, hiring the right talent. But that means getting your assistants, all those things. You know what I'm saying? You need to have those things once you start commanding $5,000. Okay? Did you have to hire an assistant to start doing more, to start schmoozing over the client more, start being more FaceTime? Because I'll tell you, when I get to the gig, my ass is working. When I'm going through the gig, and I'll talk about this soon, I'm working. I even want to give off the appearance like I'm working. Okay? So, hiring the right talent. Social media. Nobody talked about that. How important is that? Is doing content important? Now, I do know some guys, and I would actually say a lot of the guys on this company, I tried finding their socials. Some of them have follower content. Not a lot of them have YouTube content. Usually it's done through the company, which is understandable. This is the reason why I didn't want to go work with a company. I wanted my brand to be its brand. But is social media important? Are you paying for marketing through social media? I'd have to imagine those things find their way up to $5,000 customers. And then the last one that I seen, how much is coming out of your pocket on all these things? These are all credible questions to get you to $5,000 clients, okay? If you're doing the other things, that's fantastic. And I'll talk about some things that I've noticed in my next segment that I'm starting to roll into my business, and I've been able to up my price from $850 my first few gigs all the way up to I'm starting to creep on $2,300, $2,500 gigs. So, these are all questions. Leave it in the comment. Go check out the dude's video. He does drop gems, but I just feel like for me, I felt a little gaslit in all of it because I am still in the neighborhood of that $1,250 DJ, trying to get to the $5,000 DJ entertainment company. And I feel like there's some things that a lot of people don't talk about. And the marketing stuff is super important. Why don't they tell us, yo, I pay $6,000 a month to be number one on Google? That's important. You might want to lead with that. Okay? Yes, you should have good customer service when somebody calls you off that lead. If you're paying $6,000 for marketing and you're a shitbag when somebody calls you, you're an idiot. So, need some water. All right. But anyways, all those, just some things that I was seeing. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. And that takes us to our next segment. Just another gig recap. All right. I had a gig, and this ties into everything that I've already been talking about. I had a gig where a client paid me $1,100. Let me tell you what I was doing in this gig. In this gig, I was only playing the reception not even the cocktail. I was only playing the reception. I want to say it was about 3 hours. And I don't want to say these things I gave away for free. I didn't care that they happened, so I didn't upcharge for any of it, okay? I load in the gig, and all I'm bringing is my speaker stack, not even any uplights, and my DJ setup. And I'm just DJing the reception. So that's dinner, toasts, cake cutting. I don't even remember everything that was on here. This is one of my first weddings as a company, but I'm going somewhere. $1,100 I charged. And in this gig, the groom was a part of a band. He wanted to play a song. I think it was Play That Funky Music, White Boy, with his other bandmates that were a part of his wedding party for his guests. They had like 120, 130 guests. I don't even remember the details. But anyways, I charged $1,100. Now, I will say I did apply a lot of the things that he said, that Jason J and I said in the previous segment. But I got the lead off of the knot, okay? I got the lead off the knot. So I think it's important to expound on this, all right? So after the gig, they told me that they would have paid double for my service. Now, here's some things that I did that I thought was super important. From the very first time that I talked to them, I made sure that they felt welcome, bubbly, gave them, maybe I'm just naturally that way, which isn't completely true because I used to be a curmudgeon. But, I just broke the ice with them. I wanted to make them feel comfortable, like they were at home when they talked to me. That was super important for me, okay? Every meeting, or the first meeting, the wife or the spouse or the future bride, she didn't have the groom on with me. Now, if you've learned anything in this business, a lot of times what will happen is the bride's getting ready when you're setting up at the gig. And often the groom will be ready and he'll just be walking around. And I find myself having a lot of conversations with the groom before the event even starts. They're always talking to me. So in there, I just asked her, I said, hey, we have meeting X, meeting Y, meeting Z coming up. I would love it if person X, which is going to be their future husband, joined you. I'd love it to get to know you guys. And they respect that. And then the thing is that the guy, in most of my cases, because sometimes the grooms reach out to me, the guy comes into the meeting and you could tell this is outside of their element. They're like, I don't want nothing to do with this planning. And immediately I try to work on him. I build that bro, find out what he's interested in, whether it be, music, cars, what have you. And I just try to relate to that person. I want them to feel comfortable. We're like, yo, Anthony's a cool dude, man. I'm gonna be on the next call. And I think that that's what was alluded to by experience from the start to end. But where did I get that lead? That was only $1,100 lead. If I could funnel that into a $5,000 lead and I was getting those leads, I'm already providing that. So why aren't I getting the $5,000 leads? But I hadn't learned anything yet. I've only been in this business for a short amount of time at this point. However, I made sure that was super important to provide that experience. Now, I'm doing that because I learned as a senior NCO in the Air Force how you're perceived by the people that follow you or are underneath you, your subordinates. So I wanted to apply some of the things that I was doing in the service outside to be a successful business owner. So, long story short, they had a good experience, and I made sure that they understood at the end of the night. I went and took a picture with them. I made sure that they understand, hey, I'm going to be reaching out to you for a review, yada, 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 even though these are all the things I talk about leading up to their event. I don't want them to be surprised about anything that I'm going to ask them for, say, in the end, because we've already talked about it. So, anyways, that's when they shared they would have paid double. That's super important information to have. But they're not going to return to you. You know what I mean? Because they're already married. Unless they have a birthday party or something. So maybe. So anyways, Months later, I've already upped my price, and I get a call from them. Now remember, discounting somebody and then having a rate, two totally different things. Anyways, I'm sorry. I don't get a call from them. I get a call from somebody that was in their family. They were like, yo, Anthony was the bee's knees, and they got my number from them, and then they called me. And the person who called me, I guess, was a wedding planner. She was a friend of them at the event, but now she's planning a wedding. And she put me on to a new couple. And long story short, everything that they asked for, I set them a price. I don't remember the price, maybe $2,400. And this is a far off from $1,100 that I was getting paid when I first started out. They didn't, and this goes back to what they didn't even, price was still a question, even though all my prices are transparent, but they didn't negotiate. It was a wrap. Okay? They took it. It was easy. They knew that I can guarantee my service because they've already seen it in action. But there's some other things that were super important that were left off. They've seen my social media. They've seen my previous 5-star reviews. They've read some of my reviews. They weren't crap reviews. All these things went into totality to get me to the $2,300, $2,400 price tag that I was charging for that wedding. They didn't even question it. And the wedding planner was basically, even though I had never met her that I can remember, she was my number one advocate because now her name's on the line for recommending me to her clients. So that takes me to what I think is going to get my price up in the future and your price up if you're listening to this. Kill any interaction. And I don't mean kill in bad ways. I mean crush it. Go in mindset. We're going to elaborate on what Jason J and I said in his video. Mindset. Before you have that first call, build relationship. That doesn't mean know what their kids. You can ask. Not a lot of first-time couples, first-time marriers have kids, but I have had people that are getting married for the second and third time reach out to me, and I did find out what their kids' names are. And you would be surprised because I often get their parents' names, and then I'm paying attention. I'm surveying the room when I'm at an event, and I know who someone's mom is, and she comes up, and I'm like, Shannon, how are you doing? And they're usually taken aback. How the hell does he know my name? You know what I mean? They love that stuff. But anyways, I'll jot down stuff. And I had something in a previous wedding. I think it's gig log 4. I don't talk about it, but I always write down notes, music notes, all these notes on my paperwork. And it's all online, so I don't know if it's called paperwork, but data. And I wrote down what their favorite song is. And both the bride and groom had different favorite songs, and I worked it into my set. And what's crazy is they forgot that they told me it wasn't in any of their Spotify playlists. It wasn't in their must plays, do not playlist. So unless I didn't peel that onion back, they would have never known. Kill every interaction with that couple. You're going to have bad days, but you need to be able to take that, put it in a box, kill that interaction. Is it going to change that you're going to get a $5,000 client the next day? No, but it's going to help you with all the interactions that you have. So when a referral comes in, they're not even going to question whether or not you should get a raised rate. Okay, that's super important. Kill every interaction. You're not going to start your business tomorrow on $5,000 unless you're working for a DJ company that's already bringing in those off of their brand. So kill every interaction, which goes into kill every booking. That's their performance. That's everything. That's setting up your gear, making sure there's not cables everywhere. That's doing tape jobs, so making sure that it doesn't get caught in photos. That's making sure that you are making yourself open to the vendors. Getting the vendors' information. When you post a picture, and I still don't do this, so I don't want to, throw stones in my glass house. I need to do better at this. But getting the vendors' information and just put them in your Instagram or your YouTube post. Man, I worked with this vendor. They were outstanding. And not every vendor is outstanding, but leave a lasting impression at every chance. I can't tell you how many couples said, you looked busy the whole time. And they loved that. They felt like that their money was money well spent. I wasn't sitting on my ass. I was making it look like, now usually I got stuff that I'm doing. but it's important to me to make sure. And I always tell every planner or coordinator that I work with, I'm an over communicator. I don't think that you guys would get that by seeing this on the screen. But anyways, I'm an over communicator. And leave a lasting impression with everybody. Sometimes they're going to be like, yo, dude's doing too much. And it just happens. You're not going to have buy-in from everybody, but leave a lasting reaction. First impressions are lasting impressions. Get the review. I talk to so many DJs that are like, yo, I'm never able to get the review. Get a review. Like, make sure that you announce it in all of your things. Hey, I'm going to hit you up, good or bad. I want you to leave me a review. And then I even tell them at the end of the gig, I'm like, hey, they're like, you killed it, Anthony. I'm like, hey, I always ask them, are you guys going on a honeymoon after? But I always want the expectation to know, I'm going to hit you up for the review. I'm sorry ahead of time. Now, obviously I want to kill every interaction with them. So when I ask them for a review, it's usually the very least that they can do. But I'm letting them know. The expectation is I'm coming after a review. Now, out of doing almost 30 weddings, I've only had one person not leave me a review. And I swear to God, I've hit her up 3 or 4 times. It's been a while. And every time she's like, I'm so sorry, I forget. I'm leaving you one. I promise. And I know that I did really well at their wedding. But only one. And that's because I build the expectation into everything that I do. Get the review. Don't make that your sole focus, but get the review. It's important. You worked hard, especially if you're doing all this stuff. Focus on return clients from that event. Get their information. I can't tell you how many times when I first started this, somebody was like, yo, you killed it. Let me get your information. And I didn't get their information. And then they never hit me up. Now what you need to do is, hey, I'll give you mine. Do you mind if I get you yours? I sent out a newsletter and then you get theirs. And then let 4 or 5 days go by and say, hey, I know. Remember you and I talked at person X's wedding? I just wanted to shoot you a courtesy email, let you know, hey, if you ever need something, I'm definitely here. I'll work with you. It was such a pleasure meeting you. Yo, kill every interaction. Get their information. At the time, you just want to pack up and go home, I know, but that could be a $4,000 or $5,000 booking right there. Why is nobody talking about this? Use it. Take it, okay? And then up your price. Like I said, I did $1,100 gig. I had some return guests from that, thankfully, because I killed every interaction. I talked to everybody that I could. I made sure everybody had a good glowing response for Anthony, Agent B Entertainment. And then when they called me and my price is up, I know. You know when you're in negotiations and you're selling yourself if somebody wants you more than you want them. And that's where you have all the leverage as a business. Now, don't take advantage of them. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's how you start getting here, okay? Maybe those things are mindset. Maybe those things are all those things. But I told you where I market at. You know that. My prices still aren't up to $5,000. I'm all ears. I don't have any vendors or venues or wedding planners. Now, the recent returns that I did get from my wedding planners, I did offer them. I said, hey, do you do any type of referral fee or something like that? And both of them respectfully were like, no, I'm good to go. Okay? That doesn't mean that they won't in the future. And that doesn't mean that I'll just stop offering them. I want to thank them for their business. I am probably going to show up to those gigs with some type of basket for them, thanking them for their business. Okay? Because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have booked the $2,300 or $2,400 wedding. So that's super important. That's killing every interaction. That's not only with the client, that's with all of the vendors that you're working with. If you see a door staff, if you see a bartender, how are you doing? Thank you so much for what you're doing. Can I get ice so I can put some water in here? I'm the guy, I'm the wedding entertainment tonight. You know what I'm saying? Kill every interaction. Before you know it, they're going to be like, yo, this guy Anthony is a nice guy. I love having him around. $5,000 DJ. So, maybe I sold that last episode. I don't want it to be salacious. I don't want to put down Jason J&I. Seems like a super great guy. Don't know him personally. I've only heard good things about him by watching and hearing some of the things out in the industry. But I'm just telling you how I felt following that video. Maybe he sees this. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's like, yo, maybe I need to come down and talk to these guys. But let me know what you think about all the things. Kill every interaction, kill every booking, which are basically the both same thing. They're almost synonyms. Leave a lasting impression at every chance, almost the same thing. You see what I'm getting to. Get the reviews, focus on return clients from that event, and then up your price when you start getting those returns. So at the end of the day, the ones that are going to up your price are not the newer clients a lot of times that don't know you from Adam. Until your social media starts getting up there, X, Y, and Z. It's usually those return guests. That ecosystem is where you're going to start upping. So make sure you're killing all those interactions. And I know that we're going long, but that takes me to the next segment, DJ Spotlight. All right, DJ Spotlight for this week is DJ James King. Now, DJ James King is still a growing channel on YouTube. I guess everybody is. But he's based out of Houston, Texas, and he recently had me on his podcast last Wednesday. Shouts out to you, James King. Pleasurable time meeting you. But in reality, go to his page. I dropped his stuff in my channel. The guy gives honest breakdowns. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's where content creators are like, yo, look at this new speaker they sent to me. I'm going to give it's the best. It's the best thing ever. And then you see their gig logs and it's never used. You're just like, yo, why are you using RCF all the time? Why are you using JBL all the time or X, Y, and Z? You're not using that budget gear. It's because A, they either had an NDA or they had some type of agreement that they wouldn't bash the product, or they got paid. I'm just saying, maybe. So it looks like he gives good, honest breakdowns. He loves to break down budget gear. I don't want to say that there's not a place for budget gear. Newer DJs, you should be feeling out the process with your budget gear. Get budget gear. Get in these rooms. Find out. That's when you realize, hey, you need the ETX tops to push a room of 300 or 400 people because the budget gear just isn't hitting the back walls. You know what I'm saying? All them bodies in your room are soaking it up. So he has a lot of stuff on his channel. I highly encourage you to go check out his channel. And check out his podcast. Comes on Wednesdays. I think it starts at 7 p.m. I got to find out if it's Eastern. Hopefully he'll leave a comment in there. But starts at 7 p.m. And at 7 p.m. he usually talks about gear, free events, stuff like that that's going on. And then that second hour from 8 to 9, he's having on a DJ. And he's even had guys that had one subscriber on. So although those might not, I'm not sure, I'm not talking about his channel, might not always be the greatest interview. Yo, just look at the mindset. Watch it for this. Look at the mindset. This guy's doing very well, been in the game for a while. And then when he's talking to a new guy, look at the mindset. That was the mindset we all had coming into DJing. But anyways, DJ James King, shout out to you. Appreciate everything that your channel's doing. I was so glad to get to be a part of it. Hopefully we can link up again in the future. But he's the DJ Spotlight. Let's close this thing out. So if you hadn't seen, check out my latest gig log, episode 5. It's up on my channel. Came out last Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember. But check it out. Got some things in there. Did some setup. Got an assistant with me. Find out who that was. But my camera crapped the bed. I had a DSLR camera. It was a Canon that I use sometime for wide angle shots when I'm setting up because I can just set it and forget it, save my phone for other shots. But recently, I've been having issues with the autofocus, and I think it might be the lens. I don't know what it is. I've tried to peel the onion back. Anyways, I've caved. I'm getting rid of it, and I recently bought myself the Osmo Pocket 3. Haven't used it yet in any of my gigs, but I will be using it this back half of the year. I'm super excited for you to see how it goes, but there's something that I talk about right in the initial part of the episode, and I think that that's being flexible in this business. If you're going into a business thinking everything's going to go to, or going into an event thinking everything's going to go according to plan, you're in for a rude awakening. It's not. Often the plan gets, sent to the wayside, and this isn't in every case. Planning is important, but it's also important understanding the backup plan. So, I can't say this enough. If I've learned anything from this business, be flexible. The event doesn't always unroll as expected, all right? But yeah, I got rid of my DSLR camera. Well, it's about to be on Facebook Marketplace, but now I got the Osmo Pocket 3. Super excited to see how great the shots give you. And something that I just wanted to leave out there at the end of the episode, everybody says 4K 60 frames per second and then wonder why all their images and video is grainy. I'm starting to learn 4K 30 frames per second, not bad in the dark, okay? It gives that refresh rate or whatever it is, time to let light in as opposed to the 60 frames per second. So look into that. It's working, okay? And then if you guys want me to answer any of your questions, do me a favor, leave them in the comments. I promise, now, unless I start fielding 500 questions, I'll answer them on the next episode during this time. But I can't wait to see you guys on the next one. Here we go.